Hey guys, it's me today. I'm here with my August wrap up. August was a weird reading month for me because I was very much still in the reading mood, but like a lot of books I picked up I wasn't really enjoying, so therefore my reading pace went a bit slower than usual, and I didn't end up reading as much as I would have liked to, but yeah, still really excited to talk to you about all the books I've got today. And yeah, let's just skip the intro and immediately get started on the stats. I read a total of 9 books this month, which amounted to 3,084 pages, which is good. I want to be like around the 3,000 mark each month just to reach that. I read an average of 99.48 pages per day. I'd like to be at 100 a day, so I'm just underneath that. And then the average pages per book were 342.67, which again wanted to be a little bit higher, but I can deal with it. For the format, I read 3 books I owned, 5 galleys from NetGalley, and 1 library book, which I already had to return, so I'll have to pop up a picture later, but you'll see. I read 3 2-star books, 3 3-star books, 1 4-star book, and 2 5-star books, which is an average rating of 3.22, which I believe is the lowest I've had all year, so that gives you an overview of how much I wasn't enjoying the books I read this month. I read 1 middle grade, 3 young adult books, and 5 adult books, which I believe is the second month this year where I've read more adult books than young adults. I don't know how that is happening, but here we are anyway. And then for genres, I'm a bit all over the place. I have 2 contemporaries, 1 fantasy, 3 historical fictions, 1 mystery thriller, and 2 horror novels. I have to say with historical fiction, all 3 of them were historical romances. I just categorize historical romance under historical fiction because I do the same for contemporary romances. They just are under contemporary umbrella, so I feel like that's fair. Now we've gotten out of the stats, let's get into the books I read. First off, we have I Kissed a Girl by Jennet Alexander, which I gave 2 to 5 stars, and I got a galley of 2 in NetGalley. This book follows 2 main characters. One is a actress in a up-and-coming actress, and she's starring in this horror movie that's supposed to like rocket launch her career, but she's been like a lot of horror movies and also just like the pretty final girl, and she's kind of tired of that and wants to do different things, and therefore like this role is supposed to like get her more popular so she can start exploring different avenues. And then the other main character we follow is the makeup artist on this movie, and she's trying to start to make a career in makeup artistry for movies, and the two like interact, fall in love, blah blah blah. It's a sapphic romance. I don't really need to talk to you more about what the setup for this book is. I think I didn't like this book, which was very disappointing because I was so excited for this book. Like the premise sounded amazing. I ended up not really liking it, mainly because I feel like there was no chemistry between our 2 main characters. Like there was none. They especially coming from like the makeup artist main character, like she tried the entire book was like so prejudiced against the actress because the actress also used to do like beauty pageants. I forgot the name, so that's why I'm doing these vague descriptions, but the actress also used to do like beauty pageant, and she liked it. You know, she's actually girly girl because she wants to and she likes those things. And I hated how the other main character was constantly like, oh, she's just conforming to society's standards. Like this is not actually what she likes. She's just pretending to fit in and to like have this role. I'm just like, no. And she was so pretentious and annoying, and I didn't really like it. And it just took a very long time for her to get over those prejudices of the other main character. And in the meantime, we were being told like they were in love and it was perfect, and they would give up everything for each other, which was also very unrealistic because these people knew each other for like less than a month. So it was so frustrating, and I like I said, I didn't feel any chemistry between the 2 characters. It's just I was being told they were in love, but I was never really shown they were in love, and that just, I don't know, it just kept me out of things. And it's especially annoying because there is a very interesting aspect to this book, and that's I feel like the actress's own like storyline, where she is trying to make a name for herself in this industry, and how she isn't often taken seriously. Like there is this storyline in the book where she's being stalked by someone, and every time she raises concerns about this, like the people around her are like, oh, you're overreacting, it's nothing, and like eventually turns very serious. And she's like, why did nobody listen to me? Because it was serious. No one took my concerns seriously. And I think that's a very interesting storyline to include, how she was often just seen as like, be there, look pretty, and don't do anything else. We don't need you for anything else. And I liked how she was struggling against it. I was like, that's not who I am, and I can do more, and I want to do more. And I don't know, I really like that part of the storyline. I feel like if this book was just about that character just like finding its way in the industry, I think that would have been a very interesting book. But instead, we got like a very mediocre romance, and there were some subplots going on in this book as well that I just didn't really like that much. So yeah, I ended up giving it 2 stars. I twitched to this book. Then another book I gave what did I really like is Talon by Julie Kagawa, which again I gave 2 out of 5 stars. This book follows Ember, who is a dragon, and very rarity is that she has a twin brother. Usually dragons only lay 1 egg and only have 1 child at a time, but we don't know what really happened. But this time around, the mother got like 2 eggs, and there's a twin. And Ember and her twin brother Dante have got into this point of education where they are going for like the summer to the human world. They're supposed to infiltrate the human world. Nobody's supposed to know they're dragons, and they're just kind of supposed to adapt, really know what's going on with the humans, so that in the future with like survivalist things they can fully like camouflage themselves among the humans, I guess. So they're doing that, and at the meantime we also follow Garrett, who is a part of the society that hunts down dragons. He's a part of it because his own parents were killed by dragons, I believe. So that's where his hatred towards dragons come from. And this society gets the message of like, hey, the dragons have dropped a pupil in this beach town, and like maybe we should go investigate that, find the dragon, kill the dragon, especially because it is a female dragon, and they hunt female dragons more because then they think they can stop reproduction. It doesn't make sense because if you root out all the males, females also can't reproduce, but whatever. And they send Garrett and like 1 other person, and they are there to hunt down, like find the dragon that's undercover. But here's the thing, here's the catch. The 2 end up meeting, not knowing that one is a dragon, the other is a dragon hunter, and they end up becoming friends, maybe even falling for each other. There's a lot more going on in this book. There's also a rebel dragon, basically in this, the woke dragon thing is called. I don't remember how it's called in English, but basically the society of dragons is like very strict, and there are sometimes dragons that break out of that, and they are being hunted down by the dragon society, so that to keep them safe, I guess. I don't really get it. And Ember comes across one of these rogue dragons, and the rogue dragon is trying to convince her to like leave the society because she already just like isn't a fan of how it's run. So yeah, that's also going on. Long ass explanation, I apologize. I didn't really like this book, but I still have all the other books from the library right over there because I am very curious about where the series is going to go, because there's a lot of things introduced in this book that I think is very interesting. Like, I believe the Dragon Society is so fucking interesting because there's a lot of things going on in it, and it's very complex. And because Ember is just a student, she doesn't really get to see the whole scope of it. I think nobody in this whole thing knows the full scope of it, but she's like very sheltered in her views of the society. So I think it'll be interesting in like future books to explore that society more, because I think it's very interesting. And then also at the same time, the Dragon Hunter Society I also think is very interesting, and how what's going on there, because we find out in the book that they're also not everything is what it seems, just like with the dragons. And I think all of that is very interesting, and I'm just very excited to learn more about this. But I did have a lot of struggles with this because I felt like in this book, not really a lot happened. This was just like a setup for the rest of the series. At least is what it felt like. I feel like nothing really of importance went on in this book, and except the romances, which is a love triangle in case you didn't know this, and it's all very, very in love. And something I've noticed with Julia Kagawa with our Iron Face series, which I read last year, and honestly there's in the Iron Face series like 3 series, 1 is still ongoing, but in the second series, that Kiss of Love, I don't hate that much, because I feel like the way that couple like interacts in later books, it works really well. But the way it is done in this book just very much irritates me, and again, maybe later on in the series I won't mind as much. but just for this book, it very much irritated me a lot. And also just the triangle just kind of seems pointless a little bit. Maybe that's because I just don't believe in any of the romances because they're so insta-love. But yeah, I did quite like our characters. I liked the ideas behind the plot, so I'm definitely continuing on into the series, but this book just wasn't it for me. That I was a desperate lead to read something I liked, so I picked up the next Bridgerton book, which is An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn. This is the third book in the Bridgerton series. This follows Benedict, which is the second oldest Bridgerton sibling. It spells Benedict and his romance, and this is a novella retelling. We follow Sophie Beckett, who is an illegitimate child to an earl, a duke, I don't know. But like to an earl, it says on the back. She's an illegitimate child to an earl, and the earl took her in, and this was like, she's just like, I'm just the guardian of her, like denying that she's actually his child, but like everyone around him knows it. And then the earl gets remarried, and her stepmother now and siblings like don't like her, and she's very much outcast. And then the earl dies, and it's in his will that if the stepmother takes care of Sophie, like she'll get extra money, so she keeps Sophie in, but like she's a maid. That's the prologue. And then we get to the beginning of the novel, which is when the Bridgertons are hosting a masquerade ball. And with the help of some of the other maids in the house, Sophie is able to go, like sneak out without her stepmother knowing, and like be able to come back without her stepmother knowing. And Sophie immediately grabs the attention of Benedict as soon as she walks into the room, and they share a moment, and it's like not very much like questioning each other. It's very bad. But then then the next day her stepmother finds out what she did, and the stepmother kicks her out, and now she needs to go somewhere else. And then we skip like 5 years, 3 years, I don't remember how long, but there's like a time skip. Let me see. We have a time skip of 3 years now, where Benedict and Sophie end up meeting again, and things happen. Benedict doesn't know Sophie is the girl from the ball, but Sophie does know about Benedict. So that's some interesting dynamics there. And yeah, I really like this. Give it 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know if I said that, but I really enjoyed this book. I really like the Cinderella retelling aspect in this book. I feel like I'm not really the biggest fan of Cinderella retellings, because I feel like they often like follow the same beats and can feel very repetitive. But I feel like this book took a very unique approach to that story, and I really like that. I also really like Sophie, and I like Benedict, and I liked the way they interacted, and I liked the relationship they had. And this is one of the few cases I've read a book where characters are being kept apart for so long for like their own stupid reasons, that their own reasonings had kind of made sense to me. Like I totally understood where both of them were coming from, because it is a bit more complicated, as Sophie is like a maid and she isn't like high up in society like Benedict is. So there was some conflict around that, and I really understand like both of the characters and motivations. And I feel like often when it comes to conflicts like this, I feel like sometimes characters, I'm just like, you stupid people, just like talk or like figure shit out, like think normally. And I didn't really have that with this. I really understood that, and it felt bad throughout a lot of this. I'm just like, I just wish we could just like be happily together, like it would be easier. But I really liked it. And yeah, I don't really have that much more to say, but in this book, the couple for the next book gets teased a little bit. It got me so excited, so I immediately, like literally immediately, picked up Romance in Mr. Bridgerton, which is book 4. It's Penelope's and Colin's story, which, yes, so this book takes place 10 years after the beginning of this one, which I think is interesting, because just before we get into more of the plot, because this picks up immediately like the year. So you have the Duke and I, and the year after you have the Viscount Who Loved Me, and the year after you have the beginning of this book. Then you have 3 books. So you skip 3 years and it's the rest of this book. Then we skip 7 years and we have the beginning of this book. So I think that's interesting, those time jumps, because it gives a different view of the characters we've already seen. But the plot of this, we follow Penelope Bridgerton. Not Penelope Bridgerton, wow, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're following Penelope Featherington, who is the best friend to Eloise Bridgerton, and she has basically been in love with Colin her entire life. That's overreacting, but like for years. But Colin has never seen her as anything else except just a great friend, or just like his sister's best friend. Never really anything more. And then Colin gets back from his travels and he sees her and it's like, something's different. He immediately just like notices other things about Penelope that he's never before. And yeah, it's their romance story. It's super cute. I love it so much. Oh my god. And then also there's a side plot in this where Lady Dunbury has kind of put in this bet where the person who finds out who Lady Whistledown is receives like this big amount of money from her. So that's also a big part in this book. And I wanted to wait to read this book to watch the show, because in the Bridgerton show, Lady Whistledown gets revealed to the viewer at the end of the season, and I knew that, so I wanted to read the reveal first. And I'm so glad I did that. This is so good. Oh my god, I love Colin and Penelope. Like, by far my new favorite characters from the series. Penelope first, then Colin. Anthony's still third. I still love Anthony, even though I hated him in the TV show. But I've watched the TV show by now, if you didn't know. But yeah, I love Penelope and Colin so much. I really love them as like separate characters, and they just had like very distinct personalities, and I really liked that, and I really liked how they played off each other very well. I liked their interactions, their banter. I loved their relationship so much. I really, especially on Colin's side, like Penelope has been in love with Colin for most of her life at this point, and she's like a spinster. She's given up all hope on like marriage and stuff like that. And then we have Colin, who for the first time now is kind of considering marriage seriously now that he's starting to fall for Penelope. And I really like the moments where he's like, oh wait, this isn't how it used to be. When did this happen? Like, when did I start finding Penelope attractive? Like, when did I start thinking about it like constantly? I really love those moments. And yes, I don't care what you say, but Best Friend's Brother remains one of my favorite tropes of all time. It's so good. I was so well done in this. I really loved their relationship so much, and it had me like just smiling throughout most of it because it was so cute. I also really liked the Lady Whistledown storyline. I thought it was interesting, and I was spoiled for who Lady Whistledown is when the show first came out. But like, I don't trust my own memory, so throughout this entire book I like kept questioning if my memory was correct. I let it be correct, but I didn't mind. I really liked how the reveal was done. It was so good. And again, there's a little bit of a conflict between the two in this, and I understood both sides very well. And yeah, I love this. It's my new favorite book in the Bridgerton series. It's one of my favorite books of this year. I love this. The next book I read is Hitched to the Gunslinger by Michelle McLean, which I gave 2 out of 5 stars, and is a guy I got from NetGalley. This is a historical romance that takes place in like a Western time period, which I'm just trying to figure out what I like in romance. So on NetGalley, I'm just like requesting a bunch of different things, and a Western time setting is different. This follows a guy who was a gunslinger and is trying to retire, but it seems like people won't leave him alone. So he's trying to find like this quiet town that he can reside in and like live his life, and he's tired of the gunslinger life. And he just like stumbles randomly into this town and comes across this fight between a woman and her neighbor. They are fighting over her property, basically. Like, her father just recently died, and this new man wants to like take her property, and she's like, I won't sell, and he's like, oh, then I'll just marry you. And she sees the gunslinger and is like, he's my fiance. Just like randomly not knowing who he is. And yeah, they basically have to pretend to be engaged, and then eventually they get married as well. Fake. And they start falling for each other, and I didn't like it. Again, this is just a book where I just didn't feel the chemistry between the two characters like at all. Just didn't really get it. I can definitely understand like the physical attraction between the characters because they constantly talked about that, but when it comes to like actual romantic feelings, it wasn't there. Not at all. I don't understand it. I also just like didn't really like either of the two characters that much. I did quite like the setting. It's a small town setting, obviously, and it's Western, and like everyone knows each other and it's like very close to each other. And I really like that aspect to it. But then again, like every single character in this book was so one-dimensional that I often just like felt like I couldn't really distinguish between like certain characters, which was also annoying. But yeah, and then I also just didn't really like the storyline with the guy that's trying to take over the land of this woman. I just thought that was like very boring and not necessary, and then the motivations of it were also like so lame, and I'm just like, I don't know, I don't care. Yeah, I didn't really end up liking this book that much. Next up, we have One of Us is Lying by Karen and McManus, which I give 2 out of 5 stars. Again, this is the one that I got from the library, but I had to return. I read The Cousins and Think I Keep a Secret by Karen and McManus last month, and I really loved those, so I was excited to get into this book. I didn't end up liking it that much. This book follows 5 kids who are all from different social backgrounds, and one of them ends up having an allergic reaction in the middle of detention, and then they call the ambulance, and he ends up passing away. But the police starts investigating his death because there are some suspicious things surrounding it, and they end up stumbling across this post that the guy who died was going to post, because this guy had a blog where it's kind of like Gossip Girl, except everyone knew he was behind it, so it's not anonymous, where he just like posts gossip about the school, like the people in the school, and like most people don't like him because of that, because the gossip usually ends up being true, and like people don't like to be held accountable for their actions. But the police figures out that he was going to post something the next day with all this information upon the 4 other people that were in detention that day. So they start looking into these 4 teenagers to see if one of them could possibly have done it. And yeah, I didn't like it. Which I heard like very mixed things about this book going into it, which is one of the reasons why I haven't read Karen McManus before now, because I just heard so many mixed things about this book. I've heard people who absolutely love this and people who absolutely hate it. I ended up falling in the middle because I don't think it's terrible. The only thing that's terrible in this book is the rep. If you're looking for diversity, don't look in this book. I mean, there are characters of color, there are queer characters, there are characters with mental health issues, that like just like the way it's done is absolute shite, and I can definitely say that improves with her other books. I quite like representation in other books. This one, not a fan. So just saying. But besides that, I thought that this book was alright. I felt very meh about everything in this book. I just never really felt connected to any of the characters because I feel like they were such stereotypes. And this book does start off with a Breakfast Club type premise. Like 5 kids don't know each other in detention, different parts of life, and not that they don't know each other, they know of each other vaguely. And the author has said that this was inspired by the Breakfast Club, but what if one of them was murdered? Like, that's kind of like how she came up with the idea of this book. So like I was expecting stereotypes going in, don't worry, but I kind of was expecting, as the story developed, for them to kind of go out of that stereotypical box and just like become more of like an actual character, like an actual human, you know. And I feel like they never did that, even though like characters definitely developed. I feel like it was all done in like such a stereotypical way. It was like I could have predicted this from the beginning, because like every jock ends up in this direction, like every mean girl ends up in this direction eventually, you know, kind of that kind of thing. And I don't really like it that much. There's also a romance in this, which I quite liked the beginning of it, but I like the way it deteriorated and like the conflict between them towards the ending. I hate it. So, not hate it, but I don't really like how it was done. So, I'm not a big fan of that either. And eventually, just like the plot twist, there were some good ones in here, but like some just relied on like some problematic things. And I wasn't a fan of it, and like I said, I didn't really care. I also just never felt like a urgency to try and solve this mystery, which I thought was weird, because like we're following all 4 of them, like we're supposed to like feel an urgency for them to solve this mystery, like solve who actually did it, to like save their own reputations, but I just never felt that urgency. I didn't really care. So yeah. The next book I read is The Delilah Dog by Courtney Gould, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars to. Eliza Gallagher from Nagali. This book is difficult to explain, but basically we follow this small town. It takes place in a small town where 6 months before the beginning of this book, a guy went missing. But then a week before that, a guy who used to live in this small town but has moved and like made a life outside of the town, and now has come back to the town a week before this teenage boy went missing. So everyone in the town is like, that's suspicious. And then we skip 6 months and we follow the girlfriend of the guy who went missing and the daughter of the guy who arrived a month earlier. And the daughter from the guy who arrived a week earlier than that is arriving with her other father to this place, because both fathers are ghost hunters and they have the show, and they're kind of scouting this place to see if they can use it in the show, because they both grew up here and they're like all like this place is always at weird vibes. So it would be cool to use in a show if it's possible. So yeah, that's the beginning of this book. More things start happening in the town, and everyone is pointing fingers towards the two dads of our main character. And she ends up teaming up with the girlfriend of the guy who went missing to try and figure out what actually happened. She does because she wants to clear her name, like her father's names, and then the other main character does because she wants to find her boyfriend and find out what happened. And yeah, there's a supernatural element to this, where the girlfriend of the guy that went missing is starting to see ghosts. First of the boyfriend that went missing, and then of other things as well. And there's a lot going on. It's very hard to explain because I don't want to spoil anything, but if I'm explaining things now, I feel like it doesn't make sense to anyone. So I hope it makes sense to you a little bit. I really like this book. Again, this is a book I've heard some mixed things about before reading it. I was hesitant going into it, but I was like, I have a galley of it. I have to read it. I have to review it. And I really enjoyed it, surprisingly. Because again, I've heard so many mixed things about it. I just thought this was like a very atmospheric read. I was very much pulled into the story, and I just could feel like this dark atmosphere. And like, I love the small town setting. I love small town settings just like in general, but in this book it was like very well done, and I liked just like the general atmosphere around everything, and with like the darkness creeping and the supernatural element, and it's kind of, I don't know, trying to figure out everything and find an explanation for it. And I really liked the two main characters. They developed kind of a romance as well, and I liked how that was done as well. And I really liked how the mystery ended up unraveling, and the way the supernatural thing fit into everything, and how everything was explained. I didn't really put all the puzzle pieces together on my own, but I put a couple there, and they finished it off for me, and I don't know, I really liked it. And yeah. We have Mine by Delilah as Dawson, which is another gal I got from NetGalley, and I give 2 out of 5 stars to. This one is a middle grade horror novel, and it follows this girl whose family is moving from, I don't remember where, to Florida, and again, this like smaller town, and they move into like this old house, and our main character is like experiencing like weird things around the house. And she's trying to tell her parents about it, but like her parents don't believe her. They think she's being over dramatic because she didn't want to move. And it ends up being the little girl that used to live in this house haunting the place because she doesn't want other people living there. This is a very quick read. I flew through this book. I didn't really like it that much. There's nothing like particularly wrong with it, but I just never really felt invested in it. I feel like the majority of this book felt like an introductory. Like we're still like setting up everything. And all of a sudden it was just like done. And it was just like, okay. I would have liked to have like more of a middle, that this book didn't really have that. I had sometimes there were some creepy vibes going on. There were like some scenes so I was like, oh, like I felt the tension, but I feel like overall there was just like a lot of nothing going on. And I wish that was a little bit less. The parents also infuriated me to no end. Like the mom does end up redeeming herself a little bit, but the dad is just an asshole, and I hated him. And I don't know what good for that was, because he can still have parents not believing in the ghost the child is seeing without just being a complete asshat, but they did it anyway. And there's also throughout this book kind of like they keep insinuating that something happened in the previous place where they lived, and my character keeps blaming herself for it. And when that got revealed, I was just like, and because I just felt like it wasn't, if you keep building this up, I feel like it's supposed to be like a big deal, and I feel like it wasn't really that much of a big deal, or like something like that's in a way tied up with what's going on now. But that never was the case. It was just like something random. I was like, you could have told me this from the beginning, and like I would have felt more sympathy for everyone involved in the story besides the dad. Still an asshat. But yeah, let's move on to the last book I read this month, which is Love at First Fight by Mary Jane Baker, which I give 35 stars from NetGalley. This book follows a woman who kind of has sworn off romance, not really, but like she's not a big fan of it. And to kind of like definitively say that relationships aren't for her, she's doing this 20 dates in 20 days experiment. And at the beginning of the book, she is on her, it's kind of 17 dates, or there's like 2 more to go. And like she's just come home from that date and it wasn't great, and she's like ready to give up, but there's like 2 more. And her friends are like, hold on, maybe it might turn out alright. And then she also finds out that this guy is coming back to town, and she and this guy used to have like something going on in high school, and then they were supposed to go to like the ball together, and like he stood her up without Ellie Warlale, and she's like very upset about that. Like what broke her heart, it like put her off of performance ever since, and she's like, men are trash. Like love her lot Lester Loudwell. And like over the years they still like interacted with each other, but like never really got close again. And now like he's been gone away for like a year, like some other country, and now he's back, and they start interacting again, and their friends are like, hey, you know what? We think they're actually in love with each other. They don't hate each other. Like it's especially how much they talk about each other. Like there's no way they actually hate each other, and they decide to like set them up a little bit. And yeah, it's a romance between those two. And yeah, that's the setup of this book. And I thought that was very interesting. I really liked the idea of this book, and I liked the first chunk of this book. That was very great. I liked the way these friends set them up. I liked the two main characters so separately. I thought they were interesting characters, and I liked the dynamics they had, just like even before the whole like plan started, just like the way they interacted with each other. I really liked. And then once the plan actually got set up and they were starting to like think about their feelings and figuring out what they felt for each other, and just like the romance, everything about it just was great. And then they got together. And downhill quickly this book, not because of the romance, because I still feel like the romance was great, but like everything else. I mean, there's one thing in the romance, a little bit after they got together, there was this conflict introduced, which I thought was stupid. Like both characters just reacted to it stupidly and like very over dramatic, and then it was like fixed within like 10 pages of the beginning of it. I was like, why was this included? Because it serves just like zero purpose. But didn't mind that much. But then we kind of get into this plot of the girl's main character, her best friend, and the guy's main character, his brother. Like those two got engaged at the beginning of the book, and like kind of the whole book is a bit of a lead up to their wedding and them having to do like wedding stuff together, our two main characters. And the last chunk of this book was just drama between those two friends of theirs, like the engaged couple, and it was so stupid. Like I barely cared for these characters already because they were just like there, you know, they weren't really a big part of the plot. But then the conflict between these two happened, and I thought the conflict was stupid on its own. And then on top of that, I didn't really care for the characters, so I found it even harder to care about like the conflict that was going on between them, besides it just being absolutely stupid and ridiculous, and who the fuck thought that was a good idea to put that in a book. And then on top of that, the two main characters started to feel like side characters in their own story, which also got me frustrated. So yeah, last chunk, didn't like it. I was so bored that yeah, just ended up dragging down my rating for this book just in its entirety. And yeah, that's it for today's wrap up. Let me know because I'm below if you've read any of these books or you thought of them, as well as some of the books you read this past month. I guess I'll see you guys next time. Good.
Here I am again, the same old situation. Why does the God thing have to be so complicated?